Good evening, everybody. I'm Vincent Acker, the host of the Monster Truck Outlaws of the West podcast. I am joined with Phil Vicinanza, my other host, and I'll tell you, we have an action-packed night of podcasting. It's going to be absolutely insane. We're calling it the Saloon Sitdown. And Phil, what's there to say about this Saloon Sitdown? What's about to go down here?
I'm not really sure, Vinny. This is big trial by air. That's why we're calling it an encore. We're just going to kind of sit down here, hang out with some legends and up-and-comers, and just have a good time here tonight.
It's going to be absolutely insane. It's hard to believe we've already went through 16 episodes, and now we're doing this spectacular encore in celebration of 16 episodes. And we're not done. We have more episodes coming every week, and it's going to be awesome. But Phil, what can you say? We don't have a video, so how are we going to hint? We can't really hint at our first two guests, but what's to come afterwards?
We have them on the graphic. Actually, I'm on my phone right now sharing this podcast over, so make sure you're liking and sharing this video as we bring on our announced guests, the two Hall of Famers themselves, Terry Woodcock and Seth Doulton.
Welcome, guys. How are you doing tonight?
Great.
Doing great. How you guys doing?
We're doing good. We're here hanging out and ready for a fun discussion wherever this takes us.
I got a couple of my toys off the shelf to play with.
There you go. Got some customs there.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I just want to appreciate you having me back. That's for sure. I had a good time the first go around, and it's wonderful to be back and share some more stories. And hopefully some of the listeners will have some questions or stories they want me to tell. They'll type them into the chat bar, I guess, right?
Yeah, you talk about questions. If you're listening in right now, if you have any questions, now's your chance. If you didn't get to ask something last episode, now's your chance to ask Seth and Terry. So make sure you do that. But Terry, I have a question for you. I hear you talking a lot about Seth's trucks. What was the fascination behind you and Seth's trucks?
They were always just beautiful trucks. They all worked so well. I love that body style, the paint schemes they came up with. Everything was so original, and they just always looked so good. It was, one thing to have a truck out there and compete, but it's something that Seth told me a long time ago and made a lot of sense was it's important that you do what you're supposed to be doing Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. You go out and race, but those trucks, they were all booked on displays. They had quite a thing going, and it was pretty impressive. It showed me a whole different side of the business, which I never mastered like they did, but I did love the trucks. Loved seeing them come in, loved running against them. It didn't matter if I was going down a freeway and I saw one of them at an AM PM, I'd jump off the freeway, go back, check it out, talk to the drivers. They were always friendly, clean. Everything was well kept, professional, attentive. It was something I saw. It was like that's really important because you see a lot of people don't care about some of the things you should really care about. And I was very impressed by his entire operation.
Well, thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. I have to. It all was the drivers and Jimmy building the trucks in the first place. The way he built them, they held up pretty well after we got away from the 5 tons. And the drivers really were the ones that were key to keep them clean and keep them shiny and do the displays. And it was a lot of work, and there was a lot of money too. We made a lot of money, but spent a lot of money. But you know how that goes, Terry. But it was a good run. It seems like it was a long time. It was really only barely 10 years from the start to the finish, about from 84 to 94. I think we started selling them off in about 94, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a very memorable 10 years. The trucks definitely left their mark in the industry.
Yeah, well, there was 15 different trucks total, with all of them and the rebadged ones and, getting Lethal Weapon and changing it to, Copenhagen Skull Crusher and then eventually the Beverly Hillbillies. And now that he's building it back as back to the Lethal Weapon 1. But, same way with Punch, we got Hawaiian Punch and then changed it to Flying Eagle. So when you add them all together, there's a lot of trucks, but they're all gone now. But a lot of people ask me, "Oh, wouldn't you like to have one back?" And I said, "Well, I don't know what I'd do with it."
Yeah, I got to get down there to Jimmy's sometime and check out Ecology. Take some good looks at it. I wish I could have got over there a little earlier when you had that 34-year anniversary. I would have loved to have been in there and checked it out. But I'll get down to his place one of these days. I got a lot of questions for him.
Well, just take some cash down there. You can come home with the truck.
Yeah, I might do that. I just might do that.
It's still, I tell you what, it needs to be freshened up a little bit, but it still runs strong, sounds strong. Of course, like I said, it needs to be freshened up. Some of the chrome needs to be redone, but and I don't really like the paint scheme, the way they painted it away from the way we did. It's got like a checkerboard thing on the side or whatever, but he got it because it was such a good deal, and then he goes, I don't know what to do with it. Now he's got it.
Yeah, I tried to talk to him a few times to buy it, not Jimmy, but Ecology, and they had no interest in selling it. And but as far as the Survivor, the truck looks great. Yeah, it needs a little bit of love, and I would want to put it back to how you guys originally had it painted. But that's one that made it through without getting butchered up and parts being sold off of it. Pretty rare to have something that original untouched.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. We had aluminum when we sold it to the guy back east as the Copenhagen Skull Crusher. It had a set of aluminum wheels that went with it that we got from the same place that Everett gets his wheels from. But I don't know whatever happened to those wheels. I know that when Ecology bought it, they decided they wanted to buy it back from the guy. They bought it back, and then Jimmy repainted it back to Ecology from Copenhagen Skull Crusher. But we never saw the wheels again, so I don't know whatever happened to the wheels.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't mind having a set of aluminum wheels. I don't even know. These days, it's hard just to get a set chromed.
Yeah. Well, they weren't very good for crushing. They didn't hold up very good crushing, but they sure look nice on a display truck.
Yeah. Yeah, they're beautiful. They made them stand out for sure. Give you something extra to polish. It's one thing I don't think people understand from back in the day when there was so much chrome, aluminum, and such nice paint jobs and stuff, how much time we really spent detailing those trucks, cleaning them, especially if you got anywhere near the mud, which back then we always ended up blowing the mud pit, which made a mess of the truck, but man, the crowd loved it. But you'd clean for 40 hours after that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of work, especially at those shows where we had 4 trucks at. My team was busy from sun up to sundown. Every truck had its own generator to run, run their tools or, keep the batteries charged up and stuff. And it was a constant thing to work on those trucks and get them ready for the shows and what have you.
Yeah, what amazed me, I'd see one of your displays. I'd jump in to say hi to them, and you knew they were beat. You could tell in their eyes they were tired. And say something to them, and it's like, well, this is our second one today, or this is our second one. We still got one more to do, moving those trucks around and getting into them small parking lots. Some of those AMPM parking lots are pretty small, and if there wasn't some place to park close, they had to figure out a way to finagle it in there and get the truck off the trailer and set it up. And it just always impressed me that they all kept great attitudes. They were friendly and talked to everybody, and you just know that they were wore out.
Yeah, well, that was most of the times we did 2 displays a day because there would be multiple AMPMs in a town like Santa Barbara, say, for instance. And so a lot of times they had to park in the middle of the street, in between the lanes, and just leave the 4-ways on. And it was good when they could take it wide loaded from one to another. Usually the AMPM owner would know somebody with the PD or the city manager or whatever, and they make a deal. You couldn't do it in the big towns. Any of the small towns, we pretty much wide loaded them, just put a sign on the front of the truck and we pretty much got away with doing that.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of immunity back then. You could get away with doing a lot of that now, not so much, but I know I wide loaded for months and months and months. And I mean, there was times I didn't take tires off for a long time. We just tightened the lug nuts. Must be broken axle, but you know what that was like? I never saw anybody haul as many 5-ton axles as you guys did when you had the 5-ton stuff underneath them and could change them so fast. I mean, we all got good at it. Anybody running a truck back then could change out a 5-ton axle pretty fast, but you guys had it down. And I remember it didn't matter what you broke. if you broke something you didn't have, you guys made sure everybody got together, got the truck running, dealt with the issues of it later, squared up later. But the show must go on. That was the kind of thing I really liked. The kind of thing that made me realize we're not racers, we're entertainers, and that's what we need to do is entertain. And when you're working together, all of you, as a group like you guys were, the camaraderie was really something else to see everybody help everybody just to get that truck back. Pretty neat.
Yeah, even when there was other teams running with us, like Kurt Dabney or whatever. I remember Travis, my son, one night, and I think I mentioned this last time in Sacramento at State Fair. You know, he was up all night with who was it? One of those trucks, that Chevrolet, not the Heartbeat, but one of those trucks, Equalizer. No, I forgot what it was, but he was up all night helping them fix their truck. And Kurt Dabney, he'd break something, and we'd get the welder out there to help him and stuff. That's what the show must go on kind of thing.
Yeah. It was fun days. I remember a lot of good times. I remember a lot of fun shows. I remember quite a few eventful shows, meeting all the different people coming out from the East Coast, because for a long time I didn't go past the Rockies. I just hung out here. Just so many shows in California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, Arizona. We didn't have to go across the Rockies. So it was nice when you were bringing people out. That's the first time I met Dabney was when he brought Durliner Giant out. I think it was a show I rolled at Santa Barbara.
Yeah. I remember right in that corner of the arena. I remember when you rolled there. Yeah, we always tried to get a kind of one of an East Coast truck. We had Jersey Outlaw out here one year, and then of course Jeff Boehner ran with us a lot from the Pacific Northwest, and Kurt Dabney. We had Barefoot that one year, and Equalizer, that was the other truck. We never had Nightmare out, but we always tried to have one of the East Coast trucks to kind of add to the flavor.
Yeah, it was nice. It gave me, when I started going back there, that was the people. I felt comfortable when I pull in, because back then some of the shows were 6 or 8 trucks, but a lot of the shows were 12, 14, 16 trucks. And nothing like pulling in somewhere where you don't know anybody. And it doesn't take long getting back there to get to know people and realize, we're pretty much most of us pretty much the same, having a great time doing something that's it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. And I saw a lot of people come and go over the years that didn't realize the amount of work it was, or I'm sure as you did too, you hire people and they don't last very long at all because they think it's all sunglasses and autographs and they don't want to put in the work. It's hard to find the guys, especially nowadays. There's some good guys out there, but it's tough to find the people that want to spend that time you have to dedicate to be out on the road. And
yeah, and then with us, we were just our drivers were the mechanics too, so they did the mechanic work and the drivers and cleaning the trucks. So they didn't have a pit crew, so to speak. So everybody wants to be a racer, but nobody wants to do all that work. But I know Mike Galloway's out there somewhere, and he was really, I mentioned it last time, he was instrumental in my shows being a success. I'm thinking we probably wouldn't have lasted a year or so without having him on board. And once we started having him announce the shows, the fairs, the phone, very few fairs we had to hustle. Usually they were calling us, and it was kind of a real good feeling to have something that would be that popular. And he was a great asset to our company and the whole Monster Truck Madness and our whole team.
I always said that an announcer can make a show or break a show. I've been to some shows where the guys just didn't have it, and you just couldn't get the crowd involved. And I've been to shows I've been to plenty of that he's announced. And Mike, you could have the truck being broke down out there, getting drug off the track, and Mike's got the people cheering. It made a big difference if you had the right guy behind the mic, that's for sure. And he was funny, always funny.
You guys will keep mentioning him. Why don't we bring him on? It is my honor to introduce the Monster Truck Hall of Famer and the legendary Mike Galloway.
Mike,
there he is.
Thank you very much. That's an honor to be introduced like that. I'm not much of a legend, but I'm still alive, so I guess that makes me a little bit of a legend. But I remember all the things they're talking about. I've been listening. The shows in those days were a lot different than the shows we see now. Nothing was intentionally ever torn up. And I've been to some shows over the past few years where tearing trucks up was part of the program. I'm not a big fan of that. I always like the trucks and I like the show and I like working with the people. I enjoyed all of the people that was at the shows, all the Seth drivers and Woodcock too. I mean, he was just part of the group. It was we ran with back in those days. So it was enjoyable. I spent a long time doing it and don't regret a minute of it.
Hey, Terry.
Yeah.
You know what I like about Mike?
What's that?
Line.
No. I said, that's why I'm asking you a question because I can't figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
That's Mike. I stole that from Mike Galloway.
Yeah. Got some of your original material, using it against you, Mike.
My next friend will be nothing like Doulton, I'll tell you that.
Well, I can count all my friends on one hand, and guess what, Mike? I ran out of fingers.
Yeah, oh, I know. That's out of the question.
Well, Mike, you got any stories? I know a story about Santa Barbara that you were involved in that was a prank on me. And I still remember stopping halfway home and bowing to the gods up above. You want to tell that story?
Well, in the show itself, Ruby Begonia, very attractive lady, large tatas, would come out driving a Morris Minor pickup. And we had quite a discussion about the truck and what it could do. And it was the greatest truck of all. And during the discussion, Ruby would take a match and look in the gas tank and it'd blow up. And so after it blew up, she went to the passenger side and brought out a bottle of whiskey and poured it in the truck and said, if it's good enough for me, it's good enough for my truck. And we'd probably done this act 30 times. Only this time, and the house is full, he pulls out the jug and has always had water in it, and he just turned it up and drank it, and it wasn't water this time around. He just downed that Jack Daniels. We went ahead and did the show, cleaned the arena, got everything ready for the next night, and headed up to the house. And Meredith was driving and got about halfway there, and Seth said, "Pull over. Galloway, don't you ever tell anybody about this either." And he got out and relieved himself of all of his dinner for that night right beside the road.
Yeah.
I can't say I've ever seen Seth drink.
Whose idea was, well, I see, they were, for some reason, when I was doing my act, usually the guys are getting ready for the next part of the show or whatever. So they're in the back in the get ready room or whatever. And so for some reason, Dale, Gary, Warren, Jimmy, they're all standing in front of this wall right underneath the announcer's stand. I look over there and they're all watching my act. I thought, well, God, I must be good. I guess everybody's out here watching me. So when I took that first drink, they're all like laughing. I look over there, they're laughing. So I just thought, well, I'll show them. I'll just down the whole thing. Well, that was a mistake because about 2 hours later, it caught up with me. But that was some fun on the road right there. But we had some good times.
We had a lot of good times. We were in, I don't know, Ohio, West Virginia, somewhere way back east.
Marietta, Ohio.
And we're doing the show, and I look down, and I'm up in a rodeo announcer's booth in the up high, and the place is full. The fire marshal's already been there and talked about how many people we had. And I look down and a guy walks by and grabs the guide wire to a light standing there. And I don't know how much voltage was in it, but man, oh man, we had to call the ambulance. I had to call the ambulance in, knocked him completely down, just shook him to something terrible. Didn't hurt him that bad, I don't think. They hauled him off in the ambulance, but we had a lot of things happen that night. We were in Minnesota, Minoka, Minnesota, the fair, and we had flown in the night before from California, and arrived that morning, and I was sleeping. And the lady came up and said, "Oh, Mr. Galloway, you got to come downstairs. There's a tornado coming." And I looked out the window and I said, "Ma'am, I'm from Oklahoma, and that's not a tornado." So I went back to bed. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we went over to the fairgrounds and was getting ready for our show that night. And several of us were standing around and visiting, and I looked up and said, we have to do something because here comes the tornado. And Seth and Meredith and myself and maybe Gary and Warren all got underneath the monster truck and held on to it. And the tornado went across the top of the truck and dropped a shed, barn, whatever, in the middle of the truck. Well, we're from California, so we took the front end loader, moved the shed out of the way, and had a show in about 3 hours later.
Yeah, did I tell that story about Marietta last time? I can't remember. About when Mike reminded me of it the other night, but they had a deal there where they brought the Chevy dealership. We did a sponsorship deal with them, and they did a deal, watch your clunker, trade in your car in a new Chevrolet and watch your car get crushed at the monster truck show. So there was all these running cars. There were complete running Cadillacs and Impalas and everything. And they would drive them over, and they parked them around the racetrack there. So Steve Helm and I and Garrett and Mike Galloway, we got up one morning about 10 o'clock or something, and that's 7 o'clock California time, so that was early enough for us. We got out there and got our sledgehammers out and started knocking all the glass out of these cars. So there was a space in between these cars. I guess what happened was this guy pulled his regular car in there and went over to the hog barn to check on his hog. So we're jumping across the hoods and the trunks of these cars, knocking the windows out. And all of a sudden, we're one car away from knocking the windows out of this car. This guy comes yelling across the field, no, that's my car. That's my car. So he was about 90 seconds from making that car into a windowless car. That was pretty funny.
Lots of travel. We traveled, ended up when it all happened, we would do like Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the West Coast. And then Sunday night, we'd fly out from the West Coast and go to the East Coast, Ohio or Detroit or wherever we had a show there. And there was another set of trucks there. And we'd do 3 nights there. And then the trucks that were in California had moved to another position. And so you'd crisscross the country, the United States, about 3 times a week, probably for a month and a half doing the fair circuit somewhere in the United States. Montana or North Dakota or South Dakota. We did one time, and I didn't know they had fairs in the wintertime in South Dakota. And we had to buy heaters because the grease in the truck was so thick you couldn't move the truck. It'd start, everything worked, but the thickness of the grease wouldn't let the wheels turn. And I think it was like 20 below zero or somewhere that night. That's pretty brisk. Oklahoma boys.
I've had a couple of those. I used to do Saskatoon, Saskatchewan every February. for Rob Wallachuk. We'd go up there, and it was so cold. I mean, it was literally, realistically, 40 below with the wind chill, and that's what would happen. Everything would be frozen, and you'd have to back your whole rig down inside the building and get there the night before and open the doors and watch that cold air come out of the trailer. So we always got to go in there and thaw them out, but it was amazing. That stuff could freeze where you couldn't even drag them out of your trailer. Solid frozen. That wonderful weather we dealt with, frozen toes, doing displays in the dead of winter in the snow. I remember traveling back and forth. First show you'd get of the year, I'd be out of Bakersfield, and they'd send me to Tampa, Florida. Next weekend, I'd be in Anaheim. I'm like, how about if I don't do Tampa and just do Anaheim? Nope, you got to do Tampa, then Anaheim. Do Anaheim, the next weekend they send you, somewhere clear up to Ohio or something, and the next weekend you're over in Seattle, and the next weekend you're back in Houston, and the weekend after that you go back to San Diego. It's crazy. I remember some of the worst trips were the shortest ones. You're close, so you kind of let your guard down. I remember leaving Bakersfield with Cyclops back in the early 80s, and we got down to, it was Jack Murphy Stadium. And I see this truck off in the distance, red truck, looked like a pretty good looking truck. We're trying to get our tires. Back then we ran the 4-inters. We left them on all the time, the inner tractor tires. When we got there, we pulled up on 4 blocks of wood, just little 4x4s, and we put our outer tires on. We couldn't get our tire on, couldn't figure out why. We were tired. We'd been up for a few days finishing this truck. And all of a sudden I saw that truck unload and go over there and go down in there, and we finally figured out why the tire wouldn't go on. There's one lug nut stuck on the inside. We had to take it apart and put it all back on, but then they came out and told us we weren't running. We were too late. I was thinking, man, at least we didn't travel a long ways, but what a terrible trip. But out of that, I gained a pretty good friend. That guy with that red truck sitting off in the background, that was Gary Schott. And I think that might have been one of his first shows. I'm not really sure. I never asked him, but I have razzed him before about sitting over there, tired up on the trailer, ready to go. And, man, we let our guard down for 1 minute, and it was over. But I remember some pretty rough trips across the United States. We used to use some old trailer tires off of mobile homes, and I remember going back to Indiana once, and we went through 27 tires. So when we decided we needed to upgrade our axles. Had some fun road trips for sure.
That's where sponsors come in good.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was SRO pace in those days. They'd find any excuse not to pay you.
Yeah. The worst was you'd get sent back and forth. Like, you'd see somebody else going the other way. I remember heading out to the East Coast, and I saw Brett with Michigan Ice Monster going the other way, and got a hold of him. Back then it was pagers and stuff. I think we had pagers by then. And got a hold of him and found out he was literally coming almost from where we were going, and we were going to where he was coming from, and they're crossing us back and forth. I call it keeping us hungry. We had to keep running hard to keep up with the fuel costs, but we spent all week driving to get somewhere and turn around and go back across the United States. That's why I finally thought, you know what, I'm going to move into the middle of the U.S. I'm going to move out there in Missouri and Illinois, and I'm going to have short trips. That didn't work. First place they'd send me, California.
Well, you mentioned Gary Schott. Do you know what he's doing these days? What's he up to?
Yeah, we actually do a lot of stuff together. He had a podcast on here a while back, but we do a lot of music videos, commercials, TV shows. A lot of stuff's been released. Some of the stuff hasn't been released yet. But he comes up here. He makes a mistake of coming up here. Every now and then I can trick him into coming up, but he knows to stay away from Bakersfield in the dead of summer. He's got like a temperature gauge that he goes by, and if it gets warm enough, he don't want to come up. I mean, if I'm in a jam, he'll come up. But same with my brothers. No matter what, my brothers will come up. They're living in Simi Valley. They'll come up and help me out. But Gary, he likes his cool weather down there where he lives down by San Diego. But he helps me out all the time. He's out running here and there. We do shows every now and then together. Of course, we haven't done anything since, I don't know if I did anything this year before COVID hit. But when we're running, we usually run together a couple times a month.
You mentioned your brother. I really want to appreciate him picking up a tailgate for me the other day up in Oregon when I found that tailgate. That worked out real well.
That worked out great. Yeah, and then the bumpers you found, you were willing to sell to me. That worked out good for me too.
Yeah.
Some of these restorations and stuff. I was like, yeah, that was funny because you're like, hey, do you know anybody? And I'm like, where, when? And you're like, well, like now and here. And I'm like, my brother's on his way. That was a perfect conversation. People used to tease and say I was always trying to put the brown trucks out of business, meaning the UPS, because I used to get a hold of everybody and get stuff moved all across the U.S., whether it be rear ends or tires or Clark parts, and I could coordinate. Oh, this guy's going to go from here to here, and then meet you at this show, and you can get him from him there. And had quite a shipping deal going on there for quite a while. I started thinking that the UPS guys were building their own monster truck because too much stuff wasn't making it to me, and I thought they got to be building a truck. There's going to be a UPS truck out there soon because they've got enough parts now that haven't showed up to my shop that I know they're going to come out with one.
Well, I see Alan Boyce all the time on different things, and he sure was a big help back in the early days when we were going through those 5 tons and the military drop boxes and, you know, transfer cases and stuff. I mean, I bet you Jimmy talked to him 4 or 5 times a week.
You know, I was just up there it might have been about 2 months ago. And I sat in Mark's office and we BS'd about the good old days. And his son's office is the next one over, but they have a sliding window in there, and he slid it open. We were back and forth talking and looking at all the pictures. And man, they got a big yard now. They got quite the supplies. And he hooked me up. I got some 5 tons from him and a deuce and a half transfer case and some stuff. And they got quite an operation now. It's way, way bigger than what they used to have. He was always helpful to everybody. I was surprised to see some of the pictures and hear some of the stories. I didn't realize how involved they were with some of those trucks from back east.
Well, I think it's time to bring in another player into this round table. You were name dropping him just a few minutes ago. He was our podcast guest just last week, so we're going to bring him back in here. From Terminator, Gary Schott.
Welcome, Gary.
Gary. Oh, nope, Gary. Terry Gary. Everybody's in here. How are you, Gary?
Hey, nice shirt. Nice shirt, Gary. Don't look like he's got that good of a signal right now.
It's breaking so bad I can barely hear.
One of the fastest guys to get back on his trailer after a show. Like I say, the night I met him, he was pretty fast getting off that trailer. You got a bad signal, Gary?
A few minutes ago, he was on just last.
Oh.
Here we go.
I'm trying to cheat and look at it.
Well, what we need right now is Mike, our announcer, to commentate what's going on so everybody is aware of the situation. Yeah, let's take it to Mike. There he is.
Well, the situation right now is what has happened is the microphone has gone dead on this gentleman, and he cannot convey all of his information to everyone that's out there in the audience right now. And we're working with it technically to get it fixed. I'm sure it'll be done by the next round, if not sooner. But just remember, he's in the audience right now. He's here and he's live.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, maybe you can, besides Monster Truck Madness, maybe share with us some of your favorite stadium shows that you did. You know, what was so great about them, and you know, whether it's the announcer stand or the visual, or you know, to sell. You got any of those stories for us?
I can always have a story, but one thing: Terry Woodcock, Doug Drussel in Garden City, Kansas. Drussel Brothers Machine Shop, and whether it's still in existence, I don't know, built what I think to be the first set of aluminum wheels for a monster truck. He built several of them, but I know that he built at least the first set.
Was he building them for pullers and then started building them for monster trucks, or how did he get about that? Do you know?
Yeah, Dressel built aluminum wheels for pulling tractors. They'd run a 30.5, 32 tractor tire, and they'd make them a lot wider, and he could make them out of aluminum at his shop. And he built a lot of tractor pulling wheels, and he also built some monster truck wheels. But I don't know that they're still in business, or even if they're alive.
I was trying to find that. You said that's Garden City? I'll check that out.
But I wasn't clear when you were just an observer from the outside, not on the.
One thing that I noticed about monster truck shows today that I haven't even been to one, but just watching them, you know, in the videos and stuff, that they don't really tell the people a lot about the trucks. You know, Mike used to tell them the engine size, where they were last week. He'd make up a bunch of bullshit, but you know, and you know who their wife was, and how many kids they had, and you know what they're running up for a rear end, and he'd give all the breakdown. It was almost like a magazine story, you know. And today it's just like kind of a cartoon show, you know, and they really don't get involved. They all have the same motors, and before it was like blown on alcohol and 531s and you know 572 blower motors, and he'd give people, so they really felt like they left there and they were a fan of a certain truck or a certain driver. And I'm sure they are fans now of a truck and a driver, but I just feel like that Mike and some of the other announcers that were running then, Dave Bennett out of he's south of Mike there in Oklahoma, they both did a really good job of telling people what was going on and the, you know, the obstacle course and, you know, the air that the trucks got. And, you know, like Mike used to say, hey, we'll sell you the seat, but you only need the edge, you know, and he really did that.
The thing about it was, and still is, I got in free. I had the best seat in the house, and I liked what I was doing. I started, the first drag race I can remember going to was 1958. And I loved the blower motors, and I wanted to know what the blower was, and I wanted to know what it did. And it didn't take long to convey the thought to people. I didn't realize that they listened so well. But so many young people come up to me now and, oh, yeah, I watched you on TV. And all I was doing was reciting what I had known and loved forever. It wasn't a big deal. I went to a large corporate show not too long ago and talked to some of the drivers, and the young man said, well, I've got you a seat up here and I'll go get you a script. And I said, you mean a format? And he said, no, a script. And he brought me a 5 or 6 or 10 page script of everything the announcers, and there was 3 or 4 of them, was to say, and at what time they was to say it. And that's the way it worked. And years ago, there was no format. You'd write on a piece of paper, national anthem, introduction, first round monster truck, ATVs, here, like this and go. And you had to meet the drivers. I wanted to know every one of them. I wanted to know what they did, where they lived, where they're from, how long they've been doing this, what else they did besides being involved. It was the monster truck business. So I made it my business to go talk to them. I talked to Woodcock the first time I ever saw him. It's just part of the profession of doing it. And I never wrote anything down. I just remembered it. That was included.
Listen.
That down.
Hey, Terry, do you remember that kid that drove the Hawaiian Punch when I bought the Hawaiian Punch? Not to interrupt you there, Mike, but there was a kid, Tim, whatever happened to him, that he came with Hawaiian Punch, and I remember meeting him for the first time. He was probably about 19 and a half down at the Coliseum with the Hawaiian Punch. Whatever happened to Tim?
he lived in Fresno, because I know I went up there and I bought everything from Jim Oldecker he had left after he got rid of the van and was building number 2. And that's when I met him. I went to his house and picked up some axles and stuff. But he went big time. He went up to Reno, Nevada. I stopped by and saw him not too long ago. And he hooked me up at a casino. I didn't even lose any money. We talked. We got a few things up our sleeves. He's just like the rest of us. You go see a new show, but you remember all the fun, the camaraderie of the old shows and everybody. It's nice to get together and talk. Nice to do that stuff. We've had a lot of great memories. Talked about a lot of things. Like I say, we got a few ideas for a few things we're swinging, working on. It's amazing that I never really thought I needed Facebook or wanted Facebook, but once I got it and I started getting back in touch with all these people, it's amazing. You never know in the morning when you get up and you turn on your internet who's going to be there saying hi that you may have not seen forever. And that friendship starts right back up, and you get to talk. And sometimes you wonder if some of the stories, how much of it's are embellished memories and how much of it's real. And then you get to talk to some of the other guys that were there. And it's just like back in the day, we used to sit around. Everybody was, talking about how nice it is to fly in and go here and there. And, we were my business card says it today, CEO and janitor. We did it all. We booked them. We built them. We hauled them. We fixed them. We wrecked them. We drove them. And you got to meet a lot of people and figure out, who was going where and what was going on. And I remember a lot of times people thought we were staying at the Hiltons and everything. And a lot of guys may not admit it, but I remember having a tent and spending some nights in the front seat of haulers or pitching a tent at the fairgrounds, because you always tried to show up early. At least I did. I think that's part of the reason I could stay so booked, because I would show up a week early and start promoting the show, start setting up displays and making sure that it was okay to be here or be there. I didn't want to conflict with the show sponsor, so I'd always communicate with whoever's putting on the show. And, if you stay in a hotel that whole time, it can get spendy. Back then, you run up and down the road. I ran C60s at first, so I don't know what we blew more motors up in, the monster trucks or the haulers, but I remember taking transmissions out and putting them in the hauler to get down the road to the next show and having to take it out to do the show and everything else. Some pretty wild days. But yeah, Tim, I just talked to him the other day. He was looking for some parts or something. I had stopped by. I went to look at a 6-door truck in a town real close to him. So he talked me into stopping by the casino and saw I was beat, tired, wore out. He goes, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm driving on to Bakersfield." He goes, "Man, you need to just take it easy and relax." I go, "I can. I'm just going to go on." And then I'm standing there and he walks up to me and he goes, "Well, you're taken care of," and hands me the keys to a room. He went and got a room at the casino for me. He could see how beat I was. And he's like, "I can't let you take off down the road like that, man. You just get some sleep and go in the morning." And I think we had breakfast in the morning and BS a little bit more. And we've been staying in pretty close touch since then.
Well, let's bring him on. Is he around anywhere? Can somebody find him for me?
Oh, I'll bring him in. Where is he? Tim Delany, come on out.
Hello, greetings from Reno, Nevada.
There he is.
Really nice to see you guys. Boy, I'm humbled to be here with all you gentlemen. I'm enjoying.
Gary.
I'm enjoying you guys sit there and tell those stories, and the camaraderie and the stuff we had back in the '80s was unsurpassed. So anywhere you went, everybody helped out. And Seth's shows were always top notch. I traveled with him for about 4 weeks or so up in Oregon, and I remember Seth pulled me aside and he goes, "I need you to go down, take my car, take this truck, and go down to this store or somewhere down the way in Madras, Oregon, and pick up a guy named Jim." And I go, "Jim?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Jim Oldaker." And I'm like, "The Jim Oldaker?" Because I was just a kid. I appreciate the 19-year-old thing, Seth, but I was 23. I appreciate that. So I had to go get Jim Oldaker for the first time, and I'd never met him, and I was like shocked. I'm meeting Jim Oldaker from the TV guy, and lot of good stuff. A lot of great announcing from Mike Galloway. He always was top notch. Everybody kind of remembered Punch didn't have a suspension. It was pretty solid, and we did pretty good wheel stands. So Mike announced me at the show, wait till you see this wheel stand, and everybody was ready. And there you go.
Got my props. Got my props ready for the story night.
That's good. So Mike says, wait till you see this wheel stand by Hawaiian Punch. And I came up and hit the cars and just barely lifted it up. And everybody went, ooh, and he even went, oh my goodness. And so, but he didn't know. I didn't tell him. I went over the cars and I did it backwards and stood it up on the grill. And then everybody was happy at that point. But Terry's another story. Terry and I start, 83, 82, 83. We were mudbog guys. And when you showed up and you saw Cyclops or Unnamed and Untamed, you knew you were in trouble. And Terry's always been a great friend, and his little story that come through Reno. It's amazing. You don't talk to somebody for a while, and you see them again, and you just start off from where you were. But real quickly, we wanted to pull these out real fast. The wife found these. There you go. There's the original Punch jacket, and don't ask me to try them on because they don't fit.
That's cool.
Thanks, bud.
You're going to have 100 messages from people trying to buy those from you now.
I think they're on eBay right now. They're about $7.50 is the top bid.
Yeah.
I love the retro jacket. And Gary Schott, that's another guy. Great guy. I did a bunch of shows with Gary. We always had a great time. He always had to come out last and do his donuts. And we did shows with a guy named Bruce Galt and Barbarian, and we always drew numbers. Who went first, second, and third, and with Dave Matthews. And Bruce would grab number one every once in a while, and I'd just take it from him because he was running 48s. But Gary always said, I'm going last. And we said, okay, Gary.
You there, Gary?
Can you hear us, Gary?
Yeah, I'm here. I just barely hear everybody. It's breaking up real bad. I'll try to wing it.
Gary likes to go first now so he can get in the trailer quickest.
Trailer queen. I love being the trailer queen.
Nobody can beat Gary. He'll have his doors shut and you're lining up for the final round. He's loaded up watching.
But Top Notch shows by Seth.
Driving out, you got to pull on out.
Real quick, Top Notch shows by Seth. I talked to Seth a couple times over the past few years, bought some of his shirts, but I seeing him tonight. He looks great. I haven't seen him since I handed the keys to Hawaiian Punch at the Mid-State Fair. Remember that, Seth?
Yeah.
You and Jimmy told me don't break it, but I still broke the knuckle, but we fixed it.
Yeah, we broke a lot of knuckles back in the day.
How many axles did you used to actually carry, Seth? Did you guys have in that trailer?
I don't know. Probably I would say around 10 or 12. We at the end of the 5-ton era, we were lucky to get with Henry Tough Axles, and everybody bought those axles from us. They were, I don't know how they made them, but Jimmy could tell you. But they were chrome moly, and they were heated in a certain way that they got the molecules to be working in the right direction so that the thrust would not twist them off, But, that, like I tell everybody, those trucks, we were putting together vehicles that weren't meant to work together. And, when they build an automobile, they go on test tracks and they test everything, make sure the transmission's strong enough for the motor and the drive lines are strong enough. But there's always got to be a weak link. You just got to figure out where you want the weak link to be on those trucks, And so, for a long time, it was the transmissions, and first it was the axles, then the drop boxes. We went away from the 2.5-ton transfer cases and went to SCS drop boxes and SCS, and then we started going through drive lines. We had to figure those out to get the angles right on the drive lines, so there wasn't so much pressure on those. And it was always something until we got to the planetaries. And I really believe after the planetaries were on there, they got pretty bulletproof. I got to admit that then the transmissions were the weak link. But our car transmission, we always carried at least one transmission per truck. So when we hauled two trucks together, there'd be two separate, two-square transmissions, and those were usually what we would end up changing with the transmissions.
Yeah, I think I must have caught you right when you came out of Ogden or something, because one of your trailers, I would have swore you had 100 axles in there. I was amazed. Also was amazed at your capability of hauling methanol alcohol. You had me pretty impressed there too.
Yeah, we fired an employee in Ogden one year, and he called the Ohio Patrol and said, these guys are coming down there with rigs, and they've got alcohol on the rigs, and they're hauling too much, because I think you can probably haul I don't think you can haul a 55-gallon drum, but I think you can haul 30 gallons or something and be legal or whatever. But we had those belly boxes. Jim made those fuel tanks in between where the truck parked, and there was probably 200-gallon tanks in there. We had them filled with alcohol. And those guys, those CHP guys at the scales there in California, looked all over those trucks. They couldn't see anything. And, if they had them open the jockey boxes, we had automatic pumps there with hoses and everything. It looked like a gas station underneath there. And they never found anything. And then Jimmy goes, well, that's a disgruntled employee that's just trying to get us in trouble. Okay, go ahead, go on. But, man, they would have stopped us. We would have got it.
Yeah, they would have executed you on the roadside. I remember seeing that door open and seeing the reel in there and the regular pump and stuff, and you just run it out, put it in the back of the truck, top it off. I'm like, man, these guys have it figured out.
A lot of money, all that stuff.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind having my hands. I don't know what kind of condition those trailers would be in now, but I'd love to have one of those trailers you haul those trucks on. And you guys had it set up right.
Well, those Stinger steer trailers, where I found those, we had just a Landau, roll off that would haul one truck and tires, as I remember. And I was in Sun Valley up there by Philmar, and I looked up on top of this hill, and I saw these Peterbilts, two Peterbilts up there with very small sleepers, but they had these Stinger steer trailers. So I drove up there, and they had a for sale sign on them. And what they were was old RV haulers. They used them for hauling travel trailers. So there was, they had I'm going to say a 27-foot bed on the tractor part of it. And they were trucking trailers, but they had this low Stinger steer, they haul cars with, and they had these long trailers. And so that's just right. So I measured it. I told Jimmy about it. I think we bought those first two trucks for $15,000 a piece.
That's nice. I know. I think Gary used to run Stinger. I think if I'm correct, the law allows you 10 more feet of length if you have a Stinger set up. I've never run Stinger, but I think Gary Schott did.
Gary,
go ahead.
Technical difficulties.
What was nice about it is you could roll the tires. They lifted the tires up with the hydraulic ramps on the back of the trailer, so they didn't have to manhandle them in, and then they just roll them all the way forward and put all 8 tires up on the front part of the truck, and then they'd haul the trucks on the monster trucks on the back. So it really worked out well. The whole time that Jimmy was in the game, those 10 years, one thing he did was always tried to make it easier on the drivers. Every show we were at, or every time he had a truck in the shop, he would listen to the drivers. And I don't know if you remember the trailering tires he came up with at the end were some really skinny little farm tires, on the front of a tractor, that he welded tabs on there to fit onto the Rockwell or onto the Planetary. And you could carry 2 of them, one in each arm. Steve Helm used to carry them around. Of course, he carried the big tires around, but that really helped out a lot because you didn't have to jack up the truck so high to get them on. And that really helped out. They weren't that heavy, and they were a lot easier to load the trucks with them on and everything instead of using the big, 1022 semi trucks tires.
Yeah, I call that user friendly. Same as I remember you guys as ramps, big hydraulic rams. You have these massive ramps, and you just push a button and they'd stand up and they'd lock them into place. Everything you guys had was user friendly. That's something that I think all of us strive for, because it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're tiring down that truck and tiring it up a couple times a week, it definitely takes wear on you. I mean, a lot more wear now than when I was 22, 23, 28. I wish I still had that kind of energy. I remember I used to jump off the tires, wipe the truck down in a couple minutes, bouncing off the tires onto the ground. Now it's like, somebody bring me a ladder. I never would have thought that would happen, but yeah, user friendly was important, and that's the same way with putting the tires on, getting the plates and the bearings, and everybody's used everything from a mud flap and transmission fluid to Dawn dishwashing liquid or whatever, but I got my operation down. I know Gary does. We've got it down to where it's a one-man operation. It's real simple, real easy, and you really don't. If you break a sweat, you're working too hard, because you can get it tired down and loaded up pretty quick without breaking a sweat. And those big tires, you got to learn to finesse that stuff. You definitely don't want to wrestle it, because it will beat you.
Well, yeah, like you said, there was a lot of gimmicks that people tried, like the steel boards with the ball bearings on them, and the mud flaps and stuff. But my guys, even the littlest guys like Bobby Z, Bobby Z weighed about 130. He was a smaller guy, and Todd Blazer, But there's a way to not fight the tire. If they get the truck at the right height and they get the tire in the right position, they could just wiggle it on, and it was. It was easy if you knew what you were doing. It's like anything else. You fight it, and it's going to be trouble. But Mike was one of the team too. We used to have to clean up after the shows. What a lot of people didn't see is when the lights went out and Mike came out of the announcer stand, we never let him go to the hotel because he wouldn't drive. His wife doesn't let him drive, so he had to get a ride back with us to the hotel. So we'd be cleaning glass up and cleaning up the arena till 3 or 4 in the morning, and it isn't as glamorous, it's like I said last time, when we rodeoed, I took my clown makeup off and went to the bar and started looking for, some projects to work on for the evening. We never went to the bar.
It didn't work out for you.
No. Even Meredith got in the act, right, Mike?
Say that again.
I said, even Meredith got in the act of shoveling glass.
I picked up a lot of glass.
You need to invent a glass magnet, because I think that's the reason a lot of the venues won't let monster trucks back in there, is because the guys didn't take the time like you guys used to, and like we used to when we set up. We'd strip that car down to the very best of our ability when it wasn't on their dirt, because I've owned horses. I love horses, and I learned how to shoe horses when I was a kid, running around with my uncle. So I respected that, and I respected them, and they always appreciated it. I'd walk over and tell them, hey, I'm getting ready to start this truck. It's real loud. I don't want to spook anybody or, have a kid thrown off a horse. And it was amazing how appreciative they were of it. And you could get along with them really well. It just took one wrong promoter coming in there or one wrong driver coming in with the wrong attitude doing stupid things. And I think that's why a lot of the smaller places you can't get back into, because they left it in shambles, chrome and glass and everything you can imagine out there, in their dirt. And they don't want them horses stepping on that stuff or somebody falling on it or anything like that. I know Seth's heard this from a ton of people. A lot of people have asked him to come back and do shows again, and I've asked him, and I know there's a lot of places they won't let anybody in again, but I bet you they let him in there, because he did take care of that place. You always wanted to leave it better than when you got there. That's how I always went into each one of the venues that I had anything to do with. I was never a promoter, but I was an event director and coordinator and everything else, and I made sure that they were happy when we left.
Well, that there was 2 years that we went with the rodeo. We went to Lancaster, Prineville, Medford. That's where you were talking about, or Tim was talking about picking up Old Decker. But, so we do the monster truck Friday night, rodeo Saturday afternoon, monster truck Saturday night, rodeo Sunday afternoon, or vice versa. And so we'd have to clean the arena, and we stripped all the cars, and we took the motors out, had the motors taken out, the transmissions out. We put tires in the trunk and tires in the engine compartment. And like Santa Barbara, we would do all that. And then we'd also have to put plywood down and tarps down, to really keep that ground well. And if they're going to have a rodeo there in 8 hours, you wanted to make sure you didn't leave any moldings in the arena or anything. And so we were lucky, knock on wood, that we didn't have any issues. But it was all, all the pre-work that we did on the cars and what have you. And like you said, there was horses, livestock around, and all the fairs. We do parades around the fairgrounds, and we knew, all the drivers, if they didn't do a good job or they clowned around or something, I never hired them again. And there was a guy up in Utah that we used at Rock Springs for one performance. I wouldn't let him come back any more performances because he wasn't listening to me. But I didn't want anybody running into fences or showboating or anything like that. Not that I wanted them, not that I didn't want them to like show up my trucks. I just didn't want to have an accident, like you said, where we weren't invited back.
Yeah, I remember that. Go ahead.
We were somewhere, Paris, Texas, Paris, California.
Yeah, Lake Paris.
Yeah, and we were doing our show, and I asked the guy before the show started, I said, where am I going to work from? He said, oh, we got a wagon. We got a wagon for you. They pulled a little four-wheel flatbed trailer out there and said, have a good time. This is it. And I'm working away and the show's about over with, but it's still got 15 or 20 minutes left to go. And I looked to my left and the guy's got on the tractor, fired the tractor up and is driving off with the trailer hooked on it to it. And I'm still announcing on the trailer. And didn't know what was going on. Ran around and flagged the guy down. They had words because the guy was told to go get the trailer out of that arena. And with working those shows in the fair time, you never knew what was going to happen. But yeah, the guy tried to drive off with the stage while I was still on it there.
Sounds like the old vaudeville hook.
Yeah.
The old vaudeville hook when they used to pull you off the stage when they were done with you.
Yeah. Well, the microphone cord looked like an arrow, a bow and arrow string is what it was tied with. Jim Rolling Thunder, he lives out here in the heart of America now. He lives up the road about 2.5 hours from where I'm at right now. Talk to him quite frequently.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, those fairs were a lot of work, and it was a lot of fun. But like Pomona, we set up right on the racetrack. So there's these $1 million racehorses. You got to keep the track clean if they're there. And we had like 20 minutes to set the whole show up after the last horse race because they wanted to start right away. I think their last horse race was say at 5:45, 6 o'clock. Well, they wanted to have our show at 7 o'clock. So we had like basically an hour to get everything put in place, the announcer stand, the cars, build the track, all that stuff. And then we had to get right out of there afterwards. And it was a lot of fun. We had a really good relationship with a lot of the fair managers. And, I remember one fair at Los Banos over here, close to where I live. They booked us in for one show. And I think it was an afternoon show. We sold it out. They had a line. They had more people waiting in line than got into the grandstand. They only had a grandstand probably hold 3,500 people. And so the fair manager comes up to Meredith and says, hey, can you do another show? I'll pay you the same amount of money to do another show tonight. She goes, yeah, you want us to announce it? Or yeah. So they ended up filling it up again at that night. But it was fun. It was like we were a family, and every fairgrounds we went to, they were kind of like a family too. If we needed a forklift, we needed a water truck, whatever, everything went smooth. And now, I'm sure going into these fairgrounds at non-fair time, like I think Terry goes into Stockton up there once a year. And I think you do one at Tulare once a year, or Turlock, I mean. But I'll bet you that if I had to guess, I'll bet you they're not that easy to get along with anymore.
No, you pretty much got to make arrangements ahead of time, and they drive their stuff. You can't drive it. And if they come over and move something, as soon as it's sat down, they're gone. So if you want to adjust anything, you got to go through all the chain of command again to find them. But I think enough of them got burned enough times that they're pretty jaded about it. Like I say, you get in there and you treat them with respect, treat them right. I could always get where something was going south. I could get with the manager of the venue and usually calm them down and talk them into let's get through this, make the best of it, and we'll deal with the issues later. But yeah, it's not like it used to be. You pretty much had the run of anything. They go, yeah, there's our stuff. I remember them letting us borrow their stick welders and running off their power and stuff. But you were talking about Pomona a minute ago. That was a tight window. We used to have to sit outside. We weren't even allowed to cross that track.
Right.
And then you had a short amount of time you were allowed to cross the track exactly right here and one time only. And then, you go in and do that show and you get back out of there. So we were tiring up and tiring down outside between the barns and stuff because they didn't want to. They had a real tight run schedule, and you didn't come in there and tire down and tire up and casually get ready for the show. When you come across that track, you better be ready to rock and roll because it's going to go fast.
Yeah.
I seen a comment from Gary Schott talking about the pyramid. I was going to say that was the first time I ever saw or did a pyramid was at your show, Seth. We were at I think it was called the Orange Show, San Bernardino.
That's where I broke my hands, right? Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
One of your smarter moments.
Do what?
I said it was one of his smarter moments when he broke his hand.
Well, there was a lull in the show. I can't remember whose truck broke or what happened. There was a lull in the show, and the cars were pretty much smashed down. And it was just before my clown truck, and I had a little gasoline-powered go-kart. So, I was out there clowning around, and I asked the crowd, hey, should I crush some cars? Of course, they said yes, of course. And so I got up on these cars, and the truck rolled over, and I put my hands up like this to hold on to the roll bar, and the car rolled over on both my hands. I'm still wounded from it, but I'm okay. I can drive a car and everything all right, but couldn't wipe my butt for about 6 months, and Meredith wasn't real happy about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that show with it. I don't know who came up with the idea for the pyramid, but I remember we had it at the very first show because when State Fair called me, California State Fair, I knew the people up there, and this was after I rodeoed, they go, hey, we heard you have monster trucks, we want you to do a monster truck show. And I think I told this story. I said, well, you can't do a monster truck show. All they do is crush cars, and they're like they're the end of the show, kind of the selling of a tractor pull. Oh, well, you're pretty, you can get it going. So Meredith and I started talking. I said, well, I guess we can have a beauty contest and do a wheelie contest and have a drag race, and started thinking all the stuff. And somehow along the line, we came up with this pyramid. And I'll tell you, Steve Helm, he was, I think, to the last time he went over the pyramid, he never liked going on that pyramid. But there's actually a picture of him up on top of it waving at the crowd. But I don't think too much could go wrong with it. Do you, Mike?
Yeah, I thought a lot could go wrong with it. I thought you could fall off of it real easy.
It's funny when a hood would give away, or one of the cars that have a softer roof, and it would start to cave down a little bit if you went too slow. Just that. I mean, you might only move 6 inches at the tire, but you would swear the top of that truck had moved 4 feet and you were rolling over. You just get on the gas a little bit more and get off the other end. It's not something I found. It's not something you want to do slow. It's something you want to get up and get over and get back off of.
Right.
Oh, I remember it so clearly. We always set it up on the end of the arena, the far end usually from where I was. It was it looked good. It wasn't safe, but it looked good.
Well, you guys asked me, you said, have you ever done a pyramid? Oh, yeah, do them all the time. Sure, yeah, no problem. Yeah, I was shaking in my boots, man. Never done one, and I just went for it. It was fun. It was neat.
Well, I think we got away from it towards the end, didn't we, Mike? I think cars got scarce. The big cars got scarce. Even now, they're like, can't find them at all. But, and I don't even know how these shows do it without cars. I guess it's all right. Mostly racing, I guess, and stuff. And they make dirt mounds and backflip stuff and what have you. But
it seems like most stats, I think, to save tires, because I always liked the cars, because if you were an adaptive driver, then as the cars got smashed and got worse and worse and worse, especially with no ramps. I never liked ramps. I wanted fresh cars. And you could come up on a car. That's why I put my motors back so far. I could come up to a car that's already gotten beat to where it's only 4 inches off the ground, and everybody's hitting it. They're just not getting any air. And I'd come up and I'd tap my brake right as I hit that car and stab that throttle, and she'd stand up and go across there real nice. And I said, I always loved not having ramps, but I always loved having cars. And I mean, I can understand the big cars not being around anymore, but you see all the different forms, and the people, complain about a lot of things. They complain about cars or no cars. I think part of it these days, I think it's the tires, because they just don't want to cut those tires up. But I know one thing, I got good. Gary was good. I know Tim was good. We were all pretty good at fixing slash tires. I could dismount a tire, climb inside of it, grind it down, put 3 1-foot boots on it, and have her aired up with starting fluid and a lighter, and blow it back on the bead and throw the air hose on it and be back out there in no time. And one time in Del Mar, we were doing that. I think I fixed 7 guys' tires. And I was like, I got an idea. Why don't we knock that wing window down on that car that's getting everybody that goes over that stack?
Oh, they're the worst. When those vent windows were the worst. But hey, Tim, are you still there? How long did you drive, or how long was Punch on the circuit before I bought it? Do you remember?
86. Brian and I came up to Reno, Nevada with all the parts, and with a host of 10 other people. We built that truck in 19 days. And then I handed you the keys at the end of 87, I believe. So yeah, it was right around the end of 87, I think, when you did the Mid-State Fair.
So you guys ran it for about a year then, huh?
Yeah, about a year. That was after you'd bought Cardiff Giant, and
right.
And then we took some time off, and then Brian called me and said, build another one. So for some reason we came to Reno, and now I live here, but I love it here. We came up here and built Punch up here with a host of guys, and it was a great deal. We built it in 19 days. We pulled it out of the shop in the snow, and the paint, I believe, wasn't even hardly dry on it. We had to be in BC Place up in Canada, and we hadn't even tested it. I was still running around up in Canada getting hydraulic parts for different things and fittings. And we pulled it out. It was the first night that Robbie Knievel had jumped. It was a mud bog. We were the only monster truck there. They packed that place. We wrapped the throttle and blew the bottom radiator hose right off the motor. Had a boat water pump on it. So we hit the fans and hit the cars and just mushed in and spit the transmission right out of it. And they backed us over, and people were throwing beer and hamburgers and hot dogs all over that beautiful Imron paint. And but it was good times. It was fun times back then. And we can talk about all the great places we got to eat, right, Terry?
Oh, yeah. But more importantly, we can tell you where not to eat. I mean, I can tell you every exit, every road, every truck stop you do not want to eat at. Now, I remember some wild times. I remember in the very beginning, even when we broke, the crowd loved it. I mean, now they expect, double backflips and everything else with a half gainer and a twist. But I remember one time we were at a show. It was a Pepsi car show, sound off right here in Bakersfield, hometown. And we just built the new truck. Had the big rice and canes on it, 72-inch tall, thick tread. We were in the grass. Gary hit that throttle and broke. And I've never seen anybody break an axle in every corner, but we broke 4 axles. Broke I think 1 inner and 3 outers or something to that combination. As soon as he hit the cars, he'd mash the throttle just a little too hard and snapped all the axles. And the crowd didn't even boo us. They loved it still. They just, all I did was hit the cars and it was broken. We were the only truck there. I thought it was going to be a riot. I mean, I thought they were going to be upset. But everybody's having a good time, and they just weren't really used to monster trucks yet, hadn't seen a lot. So just seeing it move and drive around was pretty cool for them. And that's the last show we did with 5 tons. After that, it was Clark's. No more 5-ton stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, why did Brian sell the truck anyway?
Oh, there was, some things going on at that time, and it was pretty much there's not much choice of him. There was I'd rather have him tell that story, but it wasn't anything he wanted to get out. It was just beyond his control at that point. Is all I'll say on that.
Okay.
It was it was a sad time at that point. A lot of sad stuff going on. So it worked out well. You took it over, and you moved on with it and renamed it, and it got to go do more shows, which I was glad about. I probably should have bought it at that point, but he just told me at that point to take it and hand you and Jimmy the keys at the Mid-State Fair. So that's what I did. And then we all started doing other things after that.
Yeah, well, Todd Blazer did a real good job. He drove it most of the time, and he really he got to know that truck pretty well. And it was a good addition to our stable. I wasn't ever sorry. All the trucks I bought, probably except for Samson, I thought were good deals. And the Lethal Weapon, it fit right into our stable, and we needed a Ford at the time. And like I said, I have no regrets on any of the trucks that we had.
Yeah, Todd Blazer, he's a great. I see him on Facebook. I guess his son's racing Super modifieds or something. He was a great guy.
Yeah, his daughter. It's
his daughter. Oh.
Yeah, she's a killer. Yeah, in fact, I stopped and had dinner with him about 2 years ago on my way to Iola, Wisconsin, going to a swap meet to do some digging, and had a great visit with him. He's doing real well, and funny story about him. Mike Galloway mentioned the Michigan State Fair. Welcome to your Michigan State Fair. He had to say that every night at the beginning of the show. But Todd Blazer was there, and he met these guys that had this Joey Chitwood look-alike thrill show. Well, he ended up going back working for them and doing stunts for them and rolling cars and running cars up on two wheels and jumping cars out of cannons and stuff. And so it was good. A lot of people. I was happy to see a lot of people go on. And, of course, Todd went and I think he drove the Jeep for a while, and then he drove barefoot for a while. And, a lot of them, most of them learned how to drive after they worked. They didn't even know how to drive a semi. Steve Helm, Larry was a truck driver, and Warren was a truck driver. But the rest of them all learned how to drive working for us. And now Steve Helm, he's made a livelihood out of driving trucks. That kind of makes me feel good that they learned something when they were with me, that they went on and he's been able to feed his family, so to speak. The only one that really hasn't learned anything working for me is Galloway.
Steve,
it was sure great seeing all those guys at your 34-year reunion. That I didn't know if I was going to make it or not. I was so glad I was able to make it and see everybody.
Yeah,
I'm hoping you do that again sometime, because I think a lot more people that wanted to make it would love to have made it. I've told everybody how it was great seeing Todd and Helms, everybody. It was just like yesterday, like we did a show last week. Everybody's so friendly, having such a good time, talking about the old times.
Yeah, the only one that didn't make it out was Bobby Z. His mom was sick, and he couldn't get away from his mom. He and Robert Parker couldn't make it out, but everybody else was there. Dale and Warren and it was good. I'd like to do another one for sure if this COVID thing ever gets cleaned up.
Yeah, that would be good.
I sent you some photos there. Does somebody have them? Does Vincent have them?
I'm sure he does. Vinny,
yeah, it's that time of the hour. It's time for Explain That Photo. All right, we're going to change up the rules a little bit for tonight, and it's going to go this way. I'm going to pull some photos up on the screen, kind of the same rules, but since we have a lot of people, if you want to hop in and talk about the photo, you can. So I'm going to go through it like a slideshow. So here's the first photo. Whoever wants to explain it, they can.
Seth better explain that, but that's my favorite shot in the world. I can actually tell you, I think that's Paul Marshing's photo. Pretty sure that would have been Rock Springs, Wyoming. I'll let Seth take it from there.
Well, yeah, that was probably doing displays or coming back from the displays. You see the tires are pretty shiny and the trucks aren't that dirty yet, so we probably just pulled into the fairgrounds alongside the road, wide loading them to displays there. But there's not a whole lot of shots. There's a shot of them outside of, I think, Joe Louis Arena or one of those shows back east where they're tired up like that where we took them. But that's some pretty nice machinery there.
There were some beautiful trucks. Yep.
Go ahead.
Where's
There's Punch.
That's cut down in that's in Oakland, I think that was. That was before we sold it, because Seth put the tips on them were white, but that's where Flying High stood on the tailgate. Do you remember that, Terry, when they had that in the magazine?
Flying High on the tailgate. I sure do.
Yeah, just like that.
I got my props ready tonight. I'm telling you, I am completely ready tonight. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I do. I remember that. That was something else. You know, back then trucks didn't roll over. You didn't see all the damage and stuff. I wish Gary was still on here with us. He could tell you where those exact tires are today. Because guess what? He's still running them on Terminator.
Yeah.
Wow.
He says they're still.
Well, Terry, I want you to. Can you explain this photo, Terry?
That's my daughter's birthday. I waited and waited for this COVID to end so I could shave that terrible beard, and my mother hated it. And I said I was going to do it eventually, so my daughter came out. And she had some fun with it first. We had to do the old lamb chops. I don't know if you remember Jim Cody Williams. He was the one that did the Pace Pecani commercial. Said, New York City, Cookie, get the rope. Well, that's a look we were going for there. She did all kinds of different cuts before she finally shaved it all off. I see my mom said something there. I know she hated it.
Well, here we go. We got another photo.
Beard.
That was at Long Beach. That was the first time we ever crushed cars in front of people. And you can see that we didn't even have the paint job on it yet. We just put a big Skull Bandit decal on it. It was at the RG Canning Car Show. We went endways over the cars. And like I said, that was the first time. That's the first crush that truck ever made right there. And it looks like the Skull guy's riding in the jump seat, and Jimmy's driving it without a helmet on, probably no seat belts.
Oh yeah, I remember the days. No race suit, no helmet, no seat belt. Get out, get on top of the cars, get out, wave at the crowd, drive off. That's such a beautiful truck.
Yeah.
And we have another photo.
Oh, St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
That's St. Louis, Missouri, on a Saturday morning. And I'm driving. I'm doing an outstanding job, by the way. Had the show Friday night and then was doing a television show Saturday. And I drove that truck, and they had the little another truck there I drove that day. Remember it very well.
Look at that
That's
old
very cool. Now we got
That's the Eliminator in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, Santa Barbara.
Didn't somebody take one of those lights down?
Well, they're all gone now. They're down. They took them down for some unknown reason, but I guess they couldn't buy bulbs for them anymore. Those lights were hung up there in 1958, so I imagine it was getting hard to get the bulbs for them. But I don't think anybody that I remember ever hit them. But they're higher than you think they are. But Jimmy definitely got air with that truck all the time. There's a picture of him in Ogden that Brian McCormick posted after our last telecast, and that when Brian was riding in it, I don't know who took the picture, but I mean, I'm not kidding you. That truck, the back tires are at least 20 feet off the car. So 15 or 18 for sure.
Yeah, I remember somebody hitting it. I don't know when it happened. I vaguely remember it. Oh, it looks like Travis said Gravedigger hit it.
Harry Woodcock.
We're going to bring another photo up on here.
Oh, there's John Borba.
Wow.
Oh, boy. That was in Fort Worth, Texas.
Well, that's Galloway?
That's
Yeah, that's Galloway.
I thought it was Borba.
It's got that 80s stash going.
Look at that hair he had. Jesus.
I was still good looking.
Look at that microphone too. What was that? 1945?
1952.
You guys did some good
Dick was
research.
a guppy. That was in
All
a
right, we got
Friday.
another one.
Oh yeah.
There's
Sons
my
of
first.
Thunder.
There's my first pyramid, right there as we speak.
Yeah, where was that now? Was that Palm Springs?
I wasn't that Orange Show, Santa Barbara?
That's
I mean,
Orange Show,
San Bernardino.
Bernardino, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because I know that weekend in Santa Barbara, my helmet came up and it covered my eyes. Every time I hit the cars, I had a motocross helmet because we really hadn't been wearing them that long. And every time I hit the cars, the jawline of the helmet would come up and cover my eyes, and I couldn't see anything until I landed and the helmet came back down. So that's where they're saying I can do this with my eyes closed came from. Yep. That was a fun show.
Oh, that's Klamath Falls. That's up around where who was your driver, Seth?
Yeah, Steve Helm lives.
Steve Helm
Yeah.
lives up there. Yeah.
I stopped and I saw him not too long ago. I did a show up there. Jeff Boehner was in the show too, and Steve walks up to me and he goes, "I'm sure you don't know who I am," and I blurted off his name right then. He goes, "Oh, you do remember me?" I'm like, Of course I do. Yeah, nicest guy. We sat and talked quite a while during the autograph session and stuff, and we did a lot of shows up in that town.
Oh, we got another photo coming up on the screen now.
Oh, look at there. That was in the
Legends. This is two legends of the sport and a helper.
That looks like SEMA or something. That truck's way too clean to be at a show.
yeah, that's SEMA.
Yeah.
I always had
Definitely
nice
SEMA.
pictures with Dennis at SEMA. Every year I'd visit with him there.
Yeah. I used to go there all the time. I haven't gone there in several years. I used to go with Ed Gerber all the time. When Ed passed away, when we lost Ed, I quit going. But
I think that was when I was living in Vegas, but that's pretty recent with those tires.
yeah, it would had to have been fairly recent. Yeah.
I looked real
Looks
nice.
to be
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
The center of attention right there.
weekend at Bernie's.
Oh, that's
Carter's
in
tire.
Arnold, California. That's when we floated it that day. Geez, you're going way back now. That's 84, 83 and a half, 84. Yeah, Brian would love to see that. That's one of the first. That's before the paint job of after we rolled it in the lake. You guys all remember that?
Yeah, I think everybody. Yeah.
I still have the only video of that, but that's got the dual winches on the front. So that's the original giant right there.
I've still not floated a truck because of that day.
Now, that was down in Palm Springs. We did a shoot down there with Brian Noto. I think it was a four-wheel off-road, four-wheeler with Bruce Galt was in that with us. We were up on the hill doing the shoot, and somebody called the police, and the police came out because we were near the ice plant or something that was endangered or something. And Punch didn't have really good brakes. I mean, it did, but it wasn't that great. And so I was the one that had to bring it down. I just used the back pressure of the motor. But boy, when we got down there was 15 cop cars, highway patrol. Brian thought we were going to jail.
You're probably endangering the Kit Fox.
That was it.
There's those haulers.
Yeah. Those are the two that I bought there. Well, actually, those are the ones before I got the haulers. Those are the Landau, the ones before I got the yellow haulers.
Yeah.
So those were that's regular tow truck Landau slide back axles. But that's Gary Starton and Steve and Meredith and I and Jimmy, and that's I believe at Ascot Raceway. We set that up for a program for US Tobacco Company. And that was probably probably one of the last photos taken of those trucks together because that one has the new paint job on the Bandit. That was very soon before we sold them. And Ascot is where the guy who ended up buying the Bandit saw those trucks.
Yeah, and that's a sad story right there, losing Ascot. I loved going to Ascot. I worked at Four Wheeler Magazine back then, and we used to do all our test shots and jumps and photos at Ascot. When that track sold, that was a sad day for me. I was definitely bummed out.
Yeah, that's where we did all our proving, testing, and of course at the races we always took a truck over to the races because Agajanian was tied in with US Tobacco.
Yeah, that's who had our hookup was Agajanian, and they say we could go there anytime and do photo shoots, do anything we needed to do. I did that TV show there. I can't remember who it was now. Amazing World of Speed and Beauty or something like that with Dan Pastorini, and they built a big old jump for us. They just did it so we could do a little TV show. Those guys were very accommodating. It was a great place.
Now, Terry, I want to hear the story behind this next picture.
Ha! I can tell you exactly everything about this picture. That's when we were obviously running the Stone Cold truck, the wrestling trucks, and some people liked them, some people didn't, but it brought in a whole new breed of fans to the monster truck industry, very enthusiastic fans, I might add. And there's my brother Dave, as Steve Austin, who's standing next to him, called him the Mini-Me. He drove the Stone Cold truck, and I always drove the Shawn Michaels Heartbreak Kid truck. But next to Steve Austin, his guy Wood, we were in Salinas that weekend with he had Bulldozer, and then Dave Morris with Equalizer. He's standing there, and then me, and literally Steve Austin made me move to the outside so I wouldn't be next to him taller, so I kind of leaned in and scrunched down a little bit. He was a great guy. He was funny. They were all funny. I loved going to the wrestling matches. But I remember we rented a car, and Morris decided he was going to drive. I think he was on the insurance, so he drove. And they pull up, and I said, "Oh yeah, it's fine to park here." When we came out, he had a traffic ticket. He had a parking ticket that I know he'll never forget because it was just like the icing on the cake. But we had a great time there. We were backstage with them all, watching them bust through the curtains and go out there and do their thing and come back in. And they started their limping, and I'll tell you, those guys took a beating. But that was a good time for me financially in monster trucks. The 97, 98, 99, when we were running the Stone Cold truck, I pretty much got to write my own ticket. I got heavily involved in the novelties then. I was running the novelty booth, running a couple trucks, making real good money, and I was booked at least 48 weekends a year, and I had some midweek shows too. So the amount of actual shows we did in venues we did, I have it all wrote down. I have everything wrote down since 1991, everywhere I went, and it was amazing how much we did, how many places we went. We were always invited to any of the, back then they called it WWF, not WWE, and we were invited to all their shows. So anytime we were traveling through, we'd stop in, we'd set up and meet the guys in BS. I remember Shawn Michaels wanted me to come down to his school in Florida so he could teach me how to wrestle and tag team with him. Because at one point there, we looked kind of a lot alike, but he's quite a bit shorter. He was quite a bit shorter than me, but he wanted me to tag team wrestle. And I said, no, I'll tell you what, wrestling with these tires is about as far as I'm getting. I watch those guys. They stick their heads in ice chests and get themselves all pumped up, and they go out and do their wrestling. They come back in and they're limping and moaning and groaning and hurting. I didn't want no part of that. But yeah, that was a fun weekend. We had a good time. I haven't seen Dave or Guy in quite a while. They're funny guys. Good to hang out with.
Yeah, well, I sent that picture to you because, I'm kind of patting myself, but I'm actually patting Meredith on the back because getting her involved driving the truck really got exposure for the monster trucks, at least in my view, more outside of the monster truck fans era. She was in People, Star Magazine, Auto Week, and I think that she was a real key to getting that kind of exposure. And so that's why I sent these magazines. But I thought it was pretty cool, and it really helped us with our sponsors. It showed our sponsors that that there's value to it out of the arena. And so that was kind of some neat times. I think that was about 86, 87. And it really helped launch a lot of stuff we were doing.
That's pretty neat. And Terry, we have a comment from Dave. You can see that.
Flying in novelties after the first show. Oh yeah, there was places we would hit that was more of a wrestling area than monster truck so much. And we would sell out by intermission the first day. And if you had a 3-day show, I mean, we had them coming in on bus and plane. And we realized we had to carry a lot more novelties with us. Because, I mean, I had to try to convince people that Dave wasn't Stone Cold because they would sit there and insist on seeing him and meeting him. I'm like, it's my brother, Dave. And it's like, no, that was Stone Cold. I know it was. And, I mean, he looked so much like him. And, if you were way up in the seats or something and we'd walk out there, they'd think the same about me and Shawn Michaels. It was funny because I think all it was the long hair with that. But I just couldn't believe the amount of novelties. That's when I realized what it would be like for Gravedigger, the kind of money, they were turning, because I would watch the novelty booths. I would sneak in behind everybody and listen to the mothers that were buying the shirts, and they'd want to know what brand the shirt was and if something's on the front and something's on the back. And that's what I'd do. I'd go order my shirts based on that. I shouldn't tell my secrets, but oh well. I would go order good brand name shirts, and I would have something on the front and something on the back. Didn't matter. One could be small. You could just have sponsors' names on the back, the truck on the front, whatever it was. But it worked well. I got to where my negotiations for my bookings involved my novelties. It's like, well, I'll run for this much per truck, this much for Stone Cold, this much for Shawn Michaels, because we also ran the Sunny truck, and we ran Generation X, and we ran the Hammer. And I would book a truck for a certain amount of money based on whether or not I had the rights to the novelties. And I'd bring in a booth. I had the pop-ups and the tables and the backdrops and the signs and the specials and the cashier drawer and all the aprons, and I'd teach everybody how to hit the stands. I can say when they talked to me about the Hall of Fame, they asked me a lot of questions and said, well, we heard you were the first of this or the first of that or whatever. And I said, I'm not going to get into that. It really doesn't matter. It took a village to get this industry where it is. So I'm not going to try to claim first of anything. But I will claim that I was the first person to ever bring a checkered flag for sale to a monster truck show. And it took off like I couldn't believe. Back then, I was paying like 32 cents a flag, and you couldn't keep them stocked up. I'd get a couple of kids running up and down the stands selling them, and they were just $3 then. And then they slowly went up a little bit more, and eventually, just for the ease of it, we made them $5 a piece. But it didn't take a long time before everybody kind of took that over and said, oh, you can't check those in, we're selling them. But before that happened, I sure made a lot of money on checkered flags. And that's the one thing I remember being at a roundy round track. I had a weekend off, and so I told the promoter, I said, hey, I can go to our next venue if you want. You cover the hotels, and I'll set up for the races the weekend before. And it was a pretty good race. I can't remember what it was, but it was something important back east. And I went and set the trucks up, and I saw those checkered flags, and I saw people waving them and stuff, and I'm like, man, I'm going to check that out. So I went and talked to the guy. He gave me the connections, which was right out of L.A., and I started buying those things. And it was amazing that now you can't go to a monster truck show anywhere without seeing those checkered flags. That's the one thing I'll take credit for, or not, because they would destroy a Sharpie. So a lot of people are like, I hate these flags. They destroy your Sharpie. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, I'll give you a box of Sharpies. Just keep signing my flags. I'm making money.
Terry Woodcock.
Yeah? Look at that. I always look at these old pictures, and I look at the cars because I'm collecting a bunch of pictures of monster trucks crushing muscle cars. I've got everything, Chargers, Camaros, Chevelles, Mustangs, everything you can imagine. So every time I see an older picture like this that I haven't seen before, I really stare down the cars that they're getting smashed.
Yeah, that was at the sports arena in L.A. Yeah. And that was real early on, the Bandit with the original paint scheme, 5-ton axles. I think it still had the, I'm not sure, but Still had the
Still
Jag.
got the Jag in it.
It did have the Jag in it still?
It did in that picture.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Probably Jimmy driving it. I'm thinking that was probably before Gary started. Yeah. No, that might be Gary. I think that's Gary.
Hey, if I could jump in real briefly, reason I had this picture come up, had a question from my man Cheech, and I'll make this my Brian Anger shout out of the night. Where'd you get those light bars from, and what was the reason for having the light bars on your trucks?
We met them at Indy or somewhere where, or maybe it was Long Beach Grand Prix. They did all the lights for the pace cars. It was Whelan, Whelan or something. And they do ambulance lights and a lot of lights. And so they sponsored us and they said, we want to put our light bars on your truck. So we had them on all the time. The Rocket had blue ones. And in fact, we got pulled over in some state and they made us cover them up, the blue ones.
The Bandit was green, right?
The Bandit was green, yeah. The Bandit 2 was, I think these are amber.
Yeah.
But we started.
Yeah, I meant the Bandit too. I've got about 8 of those light bars. I've been collecting those too, along with the Schmitty built bars and stuff. I just have to get the green lenses, which one of my friends, somebody on Facebook found where I can get those green lenses and stuff. So, like I said, I'm trying to make you proud when these trucks are restored. I really want it to look like, look just like they looked with the same brand parts.
That's cool.
Some of it gets challenging, but it's fun.
They were pretty bright too when they turned them on. They could light up a stadium. And that's when that's at the that I think is at the Goodyear Tire Factory. They were a big sponsor of ours. They gave us all the tires. In fact, they gave us tires for our personal cars, for our hauling rigs, everything. And that was at their United Way Drive. And Jimmy went back there to I think it's in Akron, and we had the truck on display there, and he's showing some of the Goodyear people. That was really early on too. That's the original paint job. It has Golden State pickup parts on the fender there. Still has the 5 tons. But we had a good tire deal. I wish I still had it. Every time I buy a set of tires.
That'd be nice. I just see those old school Goodyears, small letter Goodyears, and gets me all worked up. Every time I can find some that aren't dry rotted, I buy them up.
And that's my daughter in her messy monster truck. Travis had the pocket rocket. I think it's on that page too. And then Alexis drove the messy monster truck. They'd come in at halftime and run around the arena. And Travis would always, they were like, I don't know, probably 12-9 or something like that, or 12-10. And Travis would drive his truck all day long and get it plumb wore out by the time the show started, and he'd always get the guys to start. It had a pull start on it. He'd run back there. These guys would be all geared up to go in the show, to Warren or, and he'd always go to Warren because Warren always took care of him, or they all did. But you go, I'm out of gas. And they go, we got to get in the arena. Your dad's going to get mad at us. So they'd have to go fill up his little his pocket rocket so he could make some more laps in the arena. But he was pretty good to his sister. I think he let his sister win a few times.
That's entertainment right there.
A comment from Ian Crow, and he says, Terry, it's not too far from me.
Said Terry, that's not too far from where you picked that trailer up from me in Akron, Ohio.
Ah, yeah. That was a fun trip back. Yep. Just did that not too long ago. Just, I don't know, month and a half ago, something like that.
Didn't you buy the Orange Blossom Special or something like that?
Yeah, the Express. Yep, sure did. We got that real close. I just got to trick my brother Dave and my brother Danny and Gary into coming up one more time to the Fun Toy Shop. And actually, I think Gary's probably still watching. He doesn't know where that name necessarily came from. I'm pretty sure I see a comment from Ryan here. I'm pretty sure he was the first one that messaged me something about the Fun Toy Shop. And that name has stuck 100% because Gary or David or Danny or anybody that's been here, anybody can tell you the Fun Toy Shop might have a lot of cool toys, but the fun runs out after a little while because there's a lot of work to do here. They've all come and done it all, and I still got to trick Juan into coming one more time. David's going to help me Sunday. We just did some machining and did some stuff to some shocks on a project we're working on that we can't talk about, but Dave's going to help me get those all back together and put on that rig, and maybe I can con Juan into coming by tomorrow and help me put them all together. You know, since I'm old and I need help from those younger generation guys.
Well, gentlemen, I've had a wonderful time. Been very entertaining. But in America, old people are ready to go to bed.
What's that
Terry
saying
Woodcock,
about the skunk? What's the saying you have
you
about
have this truck.
Look at there, the
That is
original.
the original toy truck for the boss.
I don't have the original.
Thank you very much for
It's great seeing you. Great talking to you, Mike. I enjoyed it. You're always a pleasure to chat with, talk about the old stories, and we didn't manage to incriminate anyone either.
I was good to you.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I send a check every month to keep the hush money going, and I appreciate the fact.
And that's what's necessary. You need to teach Doulton.
Okay. I'll work on that.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, Mike.
Great seeing you, Mike.
Well, I think we have another guest who comes in. Mike leaves, and we have someone new coming in. It's Juan Muñoz, who's known for being at the fun toy shop.
The moment I speak,
going, guys?
he shows.
Exactly. Yeah, I heard you talking about I think my ears started ringing. So I started hearing something about, about Rolling Thunder and whatnot. And then I actually, I had these ready right here by my side. Actually, I'm over here listening to you guys.
There you go. All right.
You know,
everybody's got props going tonight.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. You guys, I mean, a lot of people know I'm a, collector. I, drive them, I work on them. So do a little bit of everything. And these collections, of course, they're pretty cool to have.
It's always great to have you at the Fun Toy Shop. Your enthusiasm helps, just seeing that. I mean, seriously, like the gleam in your eye or whatever it is, you just love it so much, and it helps reestablish that with us because, I mean, you're in it every day and you've been doing it for so long, and sometimes you're just so tired, and then to see that enthusiasm really does. Anytime David comes or Danny comes, anytime Gary comes, anybody, it just you get so much more done because it really brings up the attitude, it just makes you like right on. I love the fact that you guys love that old iron as much as we do, and we lived it, but you guys love it, and that's why we do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, a lot of you guys have heard that over and over. Is that for a lot of us younger guys, that's what we're raised watching because our parents, our friends, our uncles, whoever they grew up pretty much at the same time as you guys, doing that. And, I grew up with not much really besides, just the TV and a VCR and, just watching those old VHSs and, watching all this, all these old school trucks. I mean, I started watching a lot of the old school trucks into the newer trucks. I mean, for you guys, it was just another day, but I think for a lot of us, I mean, for us growing up, it was kind of just a dream, it's like someday, it gave us motivation a dream to have, to someday, drive one, someday, work on one, someday, be an announcer, like Mike Galloway. I mean, I grew up also listening to him all the time. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys, like I said, you heard of this many, many times, but it's you guys that give a lot of us, younger guys dreams, and a lot of us have gotten there, and it gives us, same thing like you guys, gives us motivation to keep the dream alive and see something, that we can do differently for the future, so.
Yeah, it's fun. It's always fun running with you guys, and it's always great having you here at the shop, helping out and stuff. I know we always enjoyed doing it. Like you say, we've been doing it a long time, and So, some of us are active, some of us aren't. I was, we all in and out a little bit, but it was a dream come true for me. I mean, I evolved with the sport, so it wasn't like I ever really sat in the stands and said I want to do that. I was considered probably the village idiot because I did all kinds of stupid things with four-wheel drives and Dodge Chargers and big tires, and being raised, part of the time I spent my summers on the farm sometimes, and so I'm around the tractors and the equipment, and nothing's more crucial than fixing something during harvest or planting. And so I think that kind of helped a lot with the monster trucks. And then my dad being in the Air Force my whole life, or he was a lifer, so always the junkyards were filled with military trucks, and somehow, I don't know, this knucklehead got an idea to start messing around with it. And when I realized there was other people out there as crazy as me, I thought I was pretty neat. And then, I found out people could pay me or would pay me anything from fuel and hotel and food money to show up money and everything else. That was definitely a dream come true. So even though I get a little wore out sometimes working on the stuff, I definitely appreciate every minute of it, for sure. And for me to get as excited as I am about, like, doing Seth's truck, I mean, every time those trucks pulled into a show, I was just like, God, those trucks are beautiful. I mean, their whole setup is just ideal. I'm hauling my stuff around with C60s and mobile home trailer axles, blowing tires all the way up and down the road. And to see that stuff, it just made me work harder and harder to get more where he was. And then see the new stuff develop, new people come in, getting my first custom motorhome and everything. Like I say, making it user friendly, it was great. I know you guys didn't have to take those spring truck rides, and I'm telling you what, it was something else sometimes. You couldn't walk after you got out of that truck. Of course, it can still happen. I still see it happen. Gary Schott's seen it happen. We've all seen it happen. My brothers, David and Danny. Every now and then you get your bell rung, but, man, what a great life. What a great sport.
Mm-hmm. So, like, for a lot of you guys, I mean, I guess, like, right now they say, what do you guys do to get ready before a show? I mean, some guys might eat a cheeseburger, or some guys might stretch a little bit. I mean, was there anything different that you guys did to get ready back then with, I guess, almost no suspension, and knew that you were about to take a pretty, I guess, somewhat a good beating?
I don't know about Tim or Gary necessarily. I know Seth was always organizing the shows, putting them on, making everything flow real nice and stuff. I'm sure Galloway had to exercise his vocal cords a little bit. We were so busy all the time, working on so much stuff, staying active that way. I always made sure I wasn't cold. The worst I ever got hurt was in Helena, Montana in about 1992 or 3. It was in Unnamed and Untamed. And it was cold, real cold out. We were doing a show. I don't know why we were doing a show outside that late in the year, but it was like October. And I ended up in the hospital for a few days. After that, I made sure I always warmed up. I just made sure it didn't matter if I was just stretching my arms back and forth, squatting, doing something. I got the blood flowing in my body and got my body good and warm before I got in the truck, because that's the worst I ever got hurt, and it was just from just sitting in the truck, shivering cold, and then going out there and hitting the cars and landing just stiffed up. You guys probably have all kinds of an exercise regimen or something going on nowadays, do you?
So, guys, like, what, me pretty much?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'll stretch a little bit, here and there. I mean, I guess Sam's truck is a little bit, I guess, of a struggle for me to get into. So yeah, I gotta stretch a little bit. But I'll stretch here and there, just the arms and legs and whatnot, just to make sure I'm nice and comfortable for when I'm about to get going for the show.
Well, the next time we're at a show, I'm going to do this for you, Juan. I've got that 53-foot-long trailer in that motorhome. I've got a wash brush. It's extendable. I'm going to let you warm up. You could wash my whole rig. Get your body all loosened up, get your muscles all warmed up and stuff. Scrub that whole thing down, do a hand wash. Just because I'm that kind of guy. I'm willing to do that for you.
Right on. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah. We'll see how that works.
Where do I leave the bill, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, there is that part. I only washed my rig one time by hand. After that, it was the Blue Beacon from then on. I washed it one time by hand. I couldn't move my shoulders for 3 days. I'm like, never again. I don't care how broke I am. I always wash my rig before I roll into town. I hit the last major truck stop before I hit the venue. And I only made the mistake of washing it by hand one time. That is not fun.
You realize it was a mistake after the first few minutes, but then you're like, well, I'm already in it this far, so.
I didn't get very far when I realized that. It reminded me of my Uncle Frank when I started to mow his lawn once. He had a big yard. I made about 2 passes and I was done. He goes, nope, son, you're going to learn something right now. You start it, you finish it. So, yeah, I finished the job, but I never started that job again.
That's fun.
Well, I got to jump in here for just a brief moment. Tim, if you're still here, got to ask you. We've been talking a lot of old school, and we have a up-and-coming driver like Juan Muñoz in the chat. What some advice would you give to somebody like Juan from the past to the present?
Past to the present. It's changed so much over the years. We didn't have suspension like they have now. But just his drive, I don't know him, but just watching him talk, I mean, he's enthusiastic. He's obviously excited about what he does, and that's what you have to do. And you go out day in and day out, do your job, and make the fans happy. It's all about the fans. The fans is what drives monster trucks. If you don't have fans, you're not doing any shows. So I always got a big kick out of the kids. Coming to the show, come down, get an autograph afterwards. But the only advice is understand your rig and what makes it work, and just get the feel for it and go out there and have a good time. It's all about having fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely what I try to do all the time. Obviously, growing up, I also saw the same thing, just the joy of, watching you guys go nonstop, even after maybe losing a wheel or something, it's still going. If that's what has to be done, I guess, but just I guess after I got to fix it. So, but yeah, definitely for sure. Always trying to do it for the fans because, who knows, there might be a kid that grows up with the same dream and, like I said, growing up and doing something different and that same joy, that same, I guess, enthusiasm as myself and everybody else out there, push them forward to their success, I guess.
Well, somebody gave you an opportunity and it was good. And that's what we didn't have back in the 80s. We just happened to drive up on Cardiff in Fresno, California in 1984. And I was driving my 14-inch kit on my 67 Dodge pickup. And I pulled up and just started talking to him. And I was a mechanic at that point too. And I was building mud bomb trucks. And so we just started talking, and everybody asked me, how'd you get involved? And nowadays it's a little tougher than it was. Terry will tell you that. Seth will tell you that. It was tough. It wasn't a lot really hard back in the 80s, but you had to know some people. But nowadays, you really got to get in with somebody and work for a while. We were kind of lucky. We kind of fell into the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much about how it was with me. Also, I'm also an automotive mechanic. Just kept, pushing and pushing, asking and asking, if I could help, even with just putting on, wheels on the truck, and, I thankfully I got the opportunity through, Bill Payne, and been through him a few years. And then after that, I got the opportunity through Sam Sturgis to drive his truck. And I mean, I grew up watching Sam Sturgis actually, for many years, and, just had this great, respect and love for that truck and Sam and everybody that's driven the truck, of course, before that. So, thankfully I had my chance and, just kept pushing wherever I can, do my job, full time. And then after that, hit the road right away and go to the next show. And if I'm not driving, I'm, helping out anywhere I can. And, just to be out there. And, I appreciate everybody that's given me the opportunity to even just to help out, especially like Terry. He's been giving me the opportunity to work out of his shop and learn about all these trucks, from the 80s and '90s or whatever. And then I mean, it's cool. I mean, somebody like myself. I mean, anybody mechanically inclined, I guess they would just enjoy just watching. How these things were put together back then. It's amazing. I'm like, man, these guys were actually driving these. Like, that's pretty cool. I mean, so yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome to see what you guys did, and it's pretty awesome to see how it's changed, and just how I guess we just put a show now. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I just a lot of times I just can't even input that sometimes, but it's a lot of fun. I love it.
Good deal.
Yeah, we just saw the comment there from Gary Schott. He's still in the comments. He says we need more guys like Juan. Deserves to be in the sport.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. Same as Tim was talking about, just showing up. That's all it takes. Showing up, not giving up, trying. I know it's a whole kind of different world in a sport out here, but you got the enthusiasm and you don't give up and you've got some kind of talent. I always tell people, I go, just try to get on with the team. I don't have the trucks like I used to have where I could hire people. I used to hire a lot of people and had a lot of stuff going on, but you just got to chase it. I mean, one thing that always helps in this industry is having a CDL. You go out and get a CDL, it's going to be a big points, if you know how to weld, if you're mechanically inclined, but the motivation, the drive, that's something that's big too. Remembering that we are entertainers. It doesn't matter how bad you tear your truck up at the end of the night. Go to the novelty booth and sign the autographs. And you got to take that frown and toss it out the door and smile. You got to have a good time. All those people paid to come see it and have a good time, and that's the most important thing. When you go back to a place you've been to before, and the people are making comments about how great of a time they had and how nice you were and how you took the time to talk to them, it amplifies that so much. It makes it so much easier for you to be aware of that, how important it is to talk to those people, because I've seen people that were fans turn to drivers. And it's just like Juan said himself, it can happen to anybody. If you're motivated, it could happen. Like I said, we got lucky. Tim, Gary, Seth, we all got in on ground floor. And we put together whatever we put together, and a lot of the stuff didn't work. Some of it did. Back then, you were just trying stuff, and it did or it didn't work, and it didn't matter if it didn't work. They drug you off, and you fixed it for the next show. I think for a while there, we were trying to get who had the tallest truck and who had the heaviest truck. From that, it went exactly the opposite way. Who had the lightest truck and everything, and you went too light and too thin and folded brackets up and went, yeah, let's go back to 3/8. This quarter didn't work here. But just determination, devotion. But it's easy for me because it treated me very well throughout my life. And, of course, kept me out of trouble most of the time. So, Juan, what time are you going to be here tomorrow? I see my brother Dave made a comment. Dave said, I said someday, not Sunday. Dang. Yeah.
It's someday. Well, like I said, I'm nearby, so I'm not that far from the shop. So if you ever need a hand, you know where to call. So even if it's just a little quick, help lifting something up, I don't want you hurting your back or anything. But
yeah, I get a lot of use out of my forklift.
If you're somewhere where you need. Yeah,
it's always nice to have. It's always nice to have
spaces.
I think Juan would be a great candidate to drive that tank because he's young.
I wouldn't do that to him.
I know you wouldn't.
He's too valuable.
We've all driven tanks, and you don't want to drive the tank, Juan. I can tell you. No, not unless
somebody asked me about it.
Put an air seat on it or something, or it just don't do it.
Yeah, they're great when you land on fresh cars, but they got to be fresh cars. They got to have a lot of meat to them, What? Yeah. I wouldn't jump cars in a tank. No thanks.
Probably just drive around in the parking lot somewhere. That's about it.
That's it. Stick you in it and do a music video or something. No jumping.
Yeah, no jumping. Maybe donuts. Donuts work.
Yeah, they do good donuts.
Oh, guys, what am I trying to say here? All good things must come to an end. This has been an incredible discussion. We still have a lot of people tuned in here, and I know that this won't be the last time we talk to all you guys here. I know we lost Seth and Gary due to some technical difficulties, and Mike signed off, but it's been a great pleasure having all you guys on here for a great discussion. I know a lot of people have enjoyed hearing the back and forth banter and the different takes from how it was back then, and then kind of compare it now with a guy like Juan Muñoz who's running around the West Coast.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys inviting me on. Thank you, Terry, Phil, and Vincent. I really appreciate you guys. Juan, it was nice meeting you. I'm sure you and I will run into each other. Terry and I are like we tidbitted a little bit earlier. We're working on a lot of stuff.
Nice meeting you, Tim.
Yeah, we're working on a lot of stuff. So always a pleasure to see Terry and you guys. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Hey, before you jump off, Tim, I wanted to ask everybody. This is just going to like stir it to try to get some more people involved in this. But I got some ideas for some people I'd love to see on this show. So I think every one of us should call out one person to be on this eventually. So Tim, you got somebody you want to call out? Juan? I know you got some, you're thinking West Coast, monster trucks, old or new. You guys got somebody you want to call out?
If you get Brian Cardiff on here, or Bruce Galt, Bruce isn't really a talker. He'll kind of laugh at it, but if you could get Brian Cardiff on here, I mean, that started in '83, and
yeah,
he's old school. Great guy, and he's just done a lot in his life, and he's just a really neat guy.
We need to work on that. That's a great one. Both those guys are great. I mean, I loved running with Bruce, and I never got to know Brian that well, but that's a great call out. What about you, Juan? You got anybody to call out to try to get him on the show?
I think we lost Juan.
Did we lose Juan?
Juan, you thinking?
He's thinking.
Can you hear us? Juan. Well, we might have lost Juan. Maybe you can throw it in the comments who you'd want to call out. I got a couple, but
being from good old Bakersfield.
I mean, Steve Helm would be great. There's
from us.
There we had Juan there for a second.
Uh-oh.
Did we lose Juan?
We lost.
Huh.
And then there was.
I would love to see Mike Welch come on here. There's so many stories with Mike. I mean, I got a lot of people I like to see on here, and I was figuring Juan was going to call out Sammy, get Sammy out here, or Jacob or somebody, I'd love to see Bill Payne on here, but I talked to Mike Welch a little bit the other day. He's like me. We're technically challenged. We barely get our phones working, but I'd love to swap some stories with Mike Welch. Juan, do we have you back?
You guys hear me now?
Yeah.
I think so.
I hear you.
Got me? All right, cool. Yeah, I can hear you guys, but I don't know. I guess you guys couldn't hear me, but
we're talking about calling people out, like Pat Gerber, Mike Welch.
Yeah, I was gonna say Pat Gerber. I mean, we're here from Bakersfield, so I figured maybe
Sammy
would like to give a little chat. Sam would be cool. I mean, there's also been a lot of talk about Dennis. He was out here as well. Even Pablo. I grew up watching Pablo driving a Gravedigger out here, so maybe even Pablo. I mean, I know he's out there on the East Coast, but Robert Parker. I don't know. Maybe I think we should get one of the Gravedigger guys because I mean, of course they've been to the West Coast, so I mean, you never know. I mean,
Lyle Hancock,
Adam Anderson. I mean, they've all been out here. So
Todd Frolick.
Yep.
Todd Frolick, he's another guy. I
messaged Todd the other day. It's hard with the time difference sometimes, and guys working different shifts. We all got things going on. I'd love to get to talk some stuff. Todd shook his head a lot when he first started working for me. I picked him up on the side of the road, and it was wild. We need to get him on here. We got some great stories with Todd.
Well, this is what we got to do because I see a lot of great suggestions in the comments too. As they say in show business, have their people talk to our people, especially some of those guys who maybe aren't, social media privy. If you think they're great to be on this show, we'd love to have them on. So
Jeff Boehner, that's a good one.
Jeff Boehner's a good one.
Yeah.
We
Tony Canedo.
hopefully we can live up to some of these. We're definitely talked to a few of these guys. Definitely trying our best. But, hey, you never know who might pop up on the podcast. All I know for sure is that this has been a great episode, a great roundtable. Tim, for sure, we're going to have you on one of these days just by yourself, and we can just chit-chat with you one-on-one.
Oh, that'd be a lot of fun. We've got some stories we can tell. But,
We'd be honored, and definitely
really
try to get Mike Galloway on here by himself as well. And just to say thank you again to all of our guests that are on, and thank you to obviously Terry and Seth for being the main poster children for this podcast. Can't really do without you guys. You guys have supported us so much along the way and really know how to take this to the next level, and really appreciate it.
We appreciate guys like you. Definitely.
Thank you very much.
You guys have done wonders.
Peace.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Peace out, everybody.
All right, Vinny. That was a very interesting episode. I see your camera died, but I know you're still here.
Yeah, I'm still here, having some technical difficulties, but I think the technical difficulties were all worth it at the end of the night. It was amazing, and if you're still listening in right now, if you want to see more of these kind of episodes, let us know in the comments. We tried out something new with a round table. Who knows? We may do another sometime in the future, but if you guys enjoyed it, let us know. And it was a great episode hearing, legends just duke it out in stories. It was very interesting to hear about some old monster trucks. Phil, do you got anything else to add?
I couldn't agree more. Like I just said when I closed the show there, it's great to hear the old stories and great to hear so many different perspectives. And, when we did this episode, it was just a big trial by error. We didn't know where it was going to go. We didn't know, what kind of questions we need to ask. And luckily, all of our guests came ready to chit-chat and ready to reminisce. And this is going to be one for the book. So if you haven't watched a full episode, don't worry. It's going to be here on our Facebook feed when we're done here. You can also check us out on our YouTube page and on podcast feeds. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, so many other platforms. I keep finding these other websites that are just displaying our podcast. So wherever you're going, listening to podcasts, you're going to want to check us out and rewatch some of our past episodes. We've done solo episodes with Terry Woodcock and Seth Doulton and Gary Schott and Juan Muñoz. So if you want to hear more stories from those guys, they're in the archives. So make sure you check that out. And we're not slowing down. We keep saying it. We're going to keep on rocking and rolling. Next week, you'll just have to wait and see. But one thing is for sure, we have more guests confirmed and more guests in the works. And based on some of these suggestions, I know we're going to have a few more people we're going to have to reach out to and try to hear their stories here on the Monster Truck Outlaws of the West podcast.
And, if you enjoyed the podcast, make sure to share. It helps us out a lot. And this episode, once again, was fantastic. And like you said, you never know who's going to be on the podcast. I mean, we're just pulling names out of the hat. And tonight's episode was a great example. Lots of unexpected names popping up. And I'm really excited to see if we can get them on in the solo episode. But, Phil, it's been a great time. And, man, what an episode.
What an episode. We'll see you here next week with something here on the podcast.
Something.